Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Dubai today for COP28, the world's largest climate summit. He landed there following his trip to Israel and spoke about the impact of climate change on the global food security. Nancy Cordes is closely following all of this, and she's joining us now from the White House. So, Nancy, before we get to Blinken, and he's been a very busy man, I want to talk a little bit about COP28, because there's a lot of criticism, sometimes with this gathering that they don't really ever do anything. But they did something pretty substantial on the very first day, right? They established a loss and damage fund with a lot of money poured into it. But the U.S. pledged $17.5 million. And it pales in comparison to other contributors. Some critics called it embarrassing. What have you heard, if anything, from the administration about this?
Right. This is a surprisingly small number. Compare it, for example, to the United Arab Emirates that pledged a dollar amount 10 times as large, 5 times as large, rather. The EU dedicated 15 times as much money as the U.S. I think the problem here is that this is a fund dedicated to loss and damage from climate change. The White House would need approval from Congress to give more. Republicans control the House of Representatives, and I think it's fair to say this is not a major priority for the House right now. You still have Republicans who deny that climate change is real and that it's man-made. If you think back to the Trump years, former President Trump pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. So this is an acknowledgement that it would likely be politically difficult, if not impossible, for the White House to get more money from Congress for a fund that specifically is meant to combat loss and damage from climate change affecting poorer nations around the world.
Right, good. I'm glad because I realized I didn't actually explain what the fund was for, and you just did it right there. You're right. Poorer countries that have been the victims of climate change, but not necessarily part of the reason why we're dealing with climate change. So let's talk about Secretary Blinken. He arrived at the event earlier today. He highlighted climate change and global food security. What did we hear from him?
He talked about the fact that food insecurity, as we know so well, contributes to strife, contributes to conflict, contributes to civil wars around the world. When people don't have enough to eat, when resources are scarce, of course, they are going to turn on each other as they battle for scarce resources. And he pledged a lot more money, about $150 million, to a fund that is dedicated to developing more climate resilient crops so that nations that are fighting this battle around the world, who are dealing with famine, who are dealing with food insecurity, can grow crops that are more abundant to feed their populations.
Nancy Cordes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.